On Mission tinggi dan juga wakil dari SRS Konsortium. Terima kasih atas kehadiran rekan-rekan media ke sidang akhbar pada pagi ini berhubung dengan isu-isu pelaksanaan Penang Transport Master Plan. Pagi ini kita menyediakan maklumat untuk dua isu yang dibangkitkan. Pertamanya berhubung dengan satu kenyataan oleh seorang profesor dari USM mengenai impak Transport Master Plan yang kemungkinan menyebabkan hilangnya kampung-kampung partisi. Pasukan SRS Konsortium telah teliti alignment cadangan pengambilan tanah dan akan membentangkan hasil penemuan ini untuk menjawab apa yang dinyatakan. Keduanya, isu-isu yang dibangkitkan oleh Penang Forum. Pagi ini kita pun cuba nak memberi maklum balas terhadap isu-isu yang dibangkitkan, dan dengan tidak melengahkan masa lagi, saya menjemput Engineer Sito Waliong, pengarah projek Transport Master Plan dari SRS Konsortium, untuk memulakan pembentangan. Sila.
Terima kasih. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Basically, I will go through some slides regarding the questions that has been raised by the Penang Forum. Okay, we will go through. Basically, is what do you call a transport master plan? And to come up with a master plan, there are a few phases of work that we need to go through. And then from there, it also shows that we will also highlight the so-called tram, LRT, LRV, and all these things. Okay, thanks. Now, what is a transport master plan? Now, the steps taken in developing a transport master plan. So basically, we want to show you that what HELPRO has done is there is an idea and we do a conceptual study. There is no economic and constructability evaluation, and this serves as a guideline for possible implementation. Now, what we have done is we have this, what the SIS Consortium has done after we have been appointed as a PDP. We have, instead of idea and conceptual study, we have done a feasibility study, preliminary engineering design, and that's why we come up with a transport master plan. Now, as compared to a Penang Forum, what they have done is just an idea. There's no economic and constructability evaluation, no transport and feasibility study, and all these are aspirational and sometimes not practical, and there's no funding model. Okay, next. Now, why not tram? Basically, tram is a name given to street cars. That means here we have rail vehicles running on street, so that's why it's called tram. And then there is so-called the old tram that is slow, mainly for tourists, and there is now modern tram that is actually LRV, running on the street, like rail vehicles. Now, that's where the Penang Forum, they talk about the modern tram, and then the BRT, which is the bus rapid transit. Next. Okay. for the Penang Island, the current scenario, you can see Penang roads are congested, and also the ROW for the roads are just enough for the road. The ROW means the right of way, the right of way for the road corridor, like we call it, is narrow because land in Penang is expensive. So it's just enough for roads and also enough for pedestrian, walkway, and some road shoulder. Okay, these are the scenario. So can at-grade tram be built without causing traffic havoc? Meaning you have to close one lane, another, for a tram to build, so one is up line, one is down line, so you have to close two lanes, sorry. You know. Okay. You see, Penang Island roads, they are not wide enough. And the present scenario is we have to parachute in a rail transit line into the road space. And this road space usually belongs to the government, and this will minimize land acquisition and social impact. That is the main aim of how we want to parachute those new transit lines to the road space, whatever available road space. And so, in order to achieve the state government objective of encouraging 40% of public transport mode share, so whatever system we propose need to cater for higher capacity, meaning higher speed. It's not the tourist tram, no, where ding dong, they go very slow, they can stop anywhere they want, you see. And hence, you need a dedicated corridor, and transit lines should not be mixed with existing traffic. You imagine a tram mixing with existing traffic, and knowing Malaysian drivers, you know, sometimes they will also try to cross where the tram is coming. And safety is very important when you mix with existing traffic. Now, what Penang Forum has shown are all these trams, very nice. You imagine how big their roads are. You know, they have one lane here, one lane there, they still have roads. In Penang, do you have this wide road? You know, these are modern cities, and they are planned for it. Yes, you can have this kind of tram in the new reclaimed island that is planned for this, where we have dedicated corridor for trams. You know, in a green field, that means a new area you can do it. But in an old town or old city, you need to parachute in the railway line. You don't have the luxury of this. You know? Okay, next. So, in other words, if you want to build those, can Penang afford to close all those roads? You know? And already it's quite congested road system. And if you want, even though you want to encourage people to use public transport, it's not overnight. Okay, Singapore take nearly 20 years to encourage people to go to the public transport mode. So, but let's say if the state government were to maintain the same traffic lane and put in the tram, you have to acquire buildings on outside the ROW. And that will be very, very expensive and very not possible in a heritage area also, where you can tear down all those heritage buildings. Here are some of the examples. You know, we have found that, you see, imagine when you want to do a tram road on the existing road, you have to road closure, just like in the Edinburgh tram works. These are also, you have to close the road so that we do now. This is surface only, you know. There are still work to be done, like the ground treatment underneath, and then what are the utilities relocation. Now, examples of are these like utilities relocation. that is underneath the road. Okay? Now, before you construct the concrete pavement for this fast-moving tram, I'm saying fast-moving tram because people ask, there's already a tram line on Penang Road, right? Why that one cannot be used? Now, those tram lines are, imagine those are for old trams many years ago. And they go very slowly. They are not going fast. For modern trams that you have to go fast, you have to have a concrete, strong foundation. Sometimes, if the ground is soft, like Penang, you need to do piling. Now, with all these utilities, Penang existing roads are very old roads. You have to relocate all these utilities, example, have outside. Because if there is any damage or broken pipes, utilities underneath here, you cannot be ripping up the track of the tram and repairing it. So it has to be outside. And this relocation of utilities will always disrupt traffic, and you have to close the road for some time. Okay.
Stop the tram.
You have to stop the tram also. Now, and this example of Edinburgh. So now what I'm trying to say is, those cities that try to build a tram on existing road, there will always be a cost overrun because of the soil condition and also because of the utilities. You will never know what are the utilities that is underneath until you dig it up. Sometimes, yes, they say Ptmp got the drawing or whoever got the drawing. Imagine, sometimes these utilities are so long here that even the Ptmp drawings are also not available. So these are always the cost overrun. Even when we do road works, upgrading of roads, relocation of utilities are the one that is very uncertain. Okay. And this Edinburgh one is a good example where they are actually supposed to go from the town to the airport, but because of the budget and problem, they only managed to finish 14 kilometers and stop short to the airport. If you have been to Edinburgh, you will know, So after that, they will have to take a bus to the airport. This because for them, they have all these disputes and all these things. This one, you can read also in whatever handout later we give. Now, this example of how you do those tracks for the modern, so-called modern track. You really have to dig it up, close the road, do the concrete, and then lay these rails and sleepers. Next. Now, we have Penang Forum saying that our proposal is the outdated LRT. I just want to explain that LRT stands for Light Rail Transit. It is a transit line, light rail transit line. They always say LRV, correct? LRV is light rail vehicle. This is the train itself. This is the train itself. If this train runs on street level, then they can call it a tram, modern tram. Modern tram, there are two types. There's this low capacity, that means moving very slow, they can share the road space with cars. Then there are those that you need high capacity in Penang where you need to transport people. Then you need a dedicated lane. And here you need the closure of vehicle lanes. Okay? What is LRT? LRT is actually LRV running on elevated structure. And this LRV It can be modern or can be old. Of course, when you already build an elevated structure to cater for LRT, of course you want to see which is the most modern train available during your construction time. So there is no, the question of whether it's outdated LRT or not does not arise, you see, because it is, LRT is consists of LRV. It can be the modern LRV running on an elevated structure. So we shouldn't be confused. LRV is actually light rail vehicle. If it is running on road, it is called tram. Running on elevated, it is light rail transit.
Can I interrupt here? Yeah, the Penang Forum want the best of both worlds. They want fast, they want cheap, they want to share the road. So all the criteria cannot be met. If it is fast, you have to have dedicated lane, or a grid, or elevated, uninterrupted. Then you can have the tram running or the LRV running uninterrupted. But if you share the road, as we can see later, there will be junction that you have to stop, vehicle have to stop, and all that. So all these
Are
not practical, while the vision, the inspiration is to have best of the both worlds. Have a tram which is cheaper to build on the road, no need to elevate. But to be on street level, you have other considerations like road, dedicated road instead of sharing. You want the tram to move very fast. We are saying LRV not move very fast. Yes, we agree. But can the train move very fast when it is sharing the road with other vehicles and it's not dedicated? So the best of both worlds is not practical. In our view, it's not practical. And that's why the proposal is for it to have a dedicated corridor through an elevated structure.
So when it is elevated, pedestrians still can cross the road. If it is a dedicated road lane, you will close it, and then you will be breaking the community into two sides already. This is also the other problem. A lot of jaywalking, then also it will be a problem. Okay. Now the other one was they were always Penang Forum was saying that what is in our RFP. Now, after we submit the master plan, it has escalated. But it is a different comparison. It's like an apple and an orange. In our RFP submission, basically, we submit a proposal to be a project delivery partner. You know, it's a proposal to be a project delivery partner. After we have been appointed as a project delivery partner, then we have discussion with the various local council stakeholders, and we come up with a plan. That's why and when we have this discussion with states, agencies, stakeholders, there were a lot of components which have been added, especially on the mainland. That's why it is different. So that's why there is, whatever there is additional items, with additional items, of course, there will be extra cost required. But basically, when we submit our proposal for RFP, is to be a project delivery partner. It is not a turnkey contract, no. It's not a turnkey contract. It's not saying that the cost is fixed. Or neither it is a construction contract. It's a proposal to be a PDP. Then we have to come up with a plan, discuss with all the various stakeholders, come up with a plan, and that is the master plan. And master plan need not be done straight away in phase 1 or phase 2. And also, the PDP, as PDP, need not be in the whole plan. We are maybe appointed when we sign the agreement on PDP for phase 1 only. you see. So that's why you say cost escalation against our RFP, that is different comparison that you see lah. Okay. Now the LRT for the Penang corridor. This is the most important. This will form the main backbone of the rail transit system in Penang Island. Now, this LRT system for Penang Airport, we need to go through, of course, developed areas. If not, it doesn't serve its purpose. Then that's why the corridor will be elevated and form a high capacity main north-south backbone connecting Komta direct to the airport, cater for high ridership. And there is a few must-go points. The design we have to allow to follow is a few must-go points are primary industrial, commercial, residential hubs. And also we have to allow for a connection to Seberang Drive in future. And this line has to be central enough so that they are served by feeder bus network. That means within 3 kilometers on both sides. And the railway scheme so far now we have submitted is the most central alignment located within the corridor and then with minimum land acquisition and social impact. Okay, for prior to that submission, as always been spoken by Penang Forum, there is not enough transparency or whatever. Now, prior to that submission, we have so many workshops and engagement with state agencies and relevant stakeholders were held. Okay. So for this Komta Penang Airport, what are the constraints? You see, and you have traffic conflicts, congestion lane. To avoid all these lane closure, we have studied and we find that 91% of the Bayang Lepas alignment need to be elevated. Why? Is because you have to avoid all this traffic conflict, congestion, and lane closure. Elevated rail transit is equals to LRT. Now, only when we have finished the LRT, then it will be a safety net in the public transport plan. It will act as a safety net, and then the state government may look into reducing traffic lanes for other roads to allow for dedicated pedestrian walkways, bicycles, and dedicated bus lanes. Now, the alignment selection is based on the following criteria. These matrix of factors actually are usually all used by the professional Malaysian engineering consultants. We must serve the must-go points, optimize ridership and good station accessibility, encouraging TODs, transit-oriented development, ensure integration with existing transport system and development, minimize land acquisition, ensuring constructability, and optimize journey speed. You know, that means we cannot be turning here and there a lot of curves. Curves means there's a lot of so-called dead length, you know, where it will take time. So those must-go points as a basic for us to design the alignment for this Georgetown Komta, Georgetown, USM, Sungai Nibong Express Bus Terminal, then the SPICE, then the Free Industrial Zone, and the Penang International Airport. Now, I think in the Penang Forum they have shown a picture. I think that one is in the Jelutong Dr. Lim Chong Yu Expressway. Now, if we have this Of course, we will need to take out some of the lanes. And let's say at the junction, imagine this is crossing a junction. You know, there are a lot of junctions along the way, from McCallum up. So all this tram, if you need, this tram needs to be high capacity and has to be a dedicated lane. So you have to redo all the signalized junction, and then if the tram is very frequent, imagine you have to stop every time. Next. Now in the spice there, the two-way tram, you see there are so many junctions and all these things. Without the tram and with the tram. Now this is at the industrial zone. This is without the tram, and with the tram, you have to take away the lane. You have also to build pedestrian bridge crossing over to take the tram which is in the center. Burma Road existing, you have 3 lanes. If we build the elevated, we need to take only 1 lane reduction, whereas if you use a tram, you have to take away 2. And if you need to maintain 2, like elevated, you need to either acquire shop houses, one side or the other side. You see, this will cause social impact also, and more expensive. These are the costs that has not been included. Well, when you call up a tram company and all these things, you ask for cost per kilometer, they will tell you without what are the conditions, normal circumstances. That means tram companies, what they think is you get ready the ground level. That means you do all the ground improvement, you relocate all the utilities. Then only they will come, put the rail and move. That's what their cost is. Thanks. The other topic which always been highlighted is why is there you need for highway. Basically, if you see Penang, they only depend on one Dr. Lim Chong Yu expressway going from north to south. Now, if we look at example Singapore, to shift the people to using public transport, 40% of public transport mode shift, it cannot happen overnight. You see, even in Klang Valley, to make people to change the mind shift to use electronic tolling also take 25 years. Last time they still when we have toll, we have cash lane, and this lane also take them until it become mandatory, and now only they shift. So when we concern about this transport, it is not overnight you can shift people mind shift. What we're trying to say. So in this transport plan, yes, it's moving people, not cars, where the state aspiration is to have 40% public transport mode share by year 2030. You know, now with this 40%, there is still 60% private vehicles. And highways, what I'm saying is those regional highways, not the town roads, no. Regional highways, you still need to cater for the 60% private vehicles. And these are the examples where in Singapore until today they are still building. You know, the latest one is in Singapore, they are building the highways from somewhere airport come along here. They go under the sea because they have no more space. I mean, Singapore is rich. They can go under the sea and goes to the CBD, the Central Business District area.
Moving people, not cars, I think is the aspiration of the state government, form the basis of the health growth study. But the health growth study and the state government vision is also achieving, even if we target this, it is achieving 40-60 model share, 40 public transport, 60 vehicles. So as we do all these public transport projects, it is to cater and to achieve the 40% public transport mode. But 40-60, what about the 60? 60 roads are still needed to cater to private vehicles, which is the 60% of the vision, 40-60 mode share vision. So Penang Forum always question why is the need to build more roads when you aspire to move people, not cars. But this aspiration comes under the bigger picture of 40-60. If we achieve this, it is considered a great achievement because at the moment it is 3 or 4% public transport mode share. To go to 40%, we are trying to do the LRT and all that. But what we are doing may only achieve 40% mode share. What about the 60%? So in this proposal, there is only one highway, PIL highway. Of course, the other 3 mega road projects are planned earlier. Even by the previous consultant, Helcro also planned for the Penang Outer Ring Road and the Tanjung Bunga, Batu Ferry bypass, Fair Road. All that have already been planned in the past. In fact, some sections had already been built. So that was the earlier planning. The current SRS consortium, there is only one proposal for this PIL. So I don't think that we are forgetting our vision. It's just that even achieving our vision of 40%, there is also a need to work in tandem and at the same time provide to the needs of the 60% private vehicle mode share.
Just to do a comparison, in Singapore, at the moment we are achieving 60% public transport share, 40% cars, even 40% private vehicles. They are still building highways. Now, why the Pan Island Link Road is crucial to relieve traffic? You imagine now, without the PIL, all traffics will have to go to this Lim Chong Yu Expressway to go to airport or go to second bridge, first bridge, and then you will link to the outer Butterworth Outer Ring Road. With the PIL, so that you relieve the Lim Chong Yu Expressway, help to relieve the Lim Chong Yu Expressway, the traffic, so that they can use here to here. Tanjung Bunga, they want to go airport, they don't have to go into Georgetown to go to this airport or so-called the second bridge. Okay, here also we have one interchange at this Payat Terubong where it will join up with the Air Hitam bypass and then they can go to the so-called first bridge. So you will relieve a lot of traffic in the Georgetown area. Those that is going for regional traffic. Of course, in town traffic, they still have to use, Other helpful recommendation. Now, for the Transport Master Plan by HELPRO, the HELPRO basically is short-term up to 2030, was adopted as an official document. Of course, based on HELCO recommendations, state government also has come out with these 3 major highways, undersea tunnel, bicycle master plan, and the Penang Accessibility Action Group look into those improvements for the accessibility of the disabled, or they call it a nicer word, differently abled. Now, then later Penang state government called for RFP to develop Penang to how to implement the Penang Transport Master Plan, including a funding model. So that's why we have come out and proposed an alternative Ptmp, which is for a longer term, which is up to 2050 or up to 2050 or 2055, you know. And when you come, because you know, for construction of a rail transit line, it is costly, and then it will, what you call, take up a dedicated corridor. So you must plan long term. You cannot plan only for 15 years. What happens if after 15 years you see that it is not enough? You have to rip up and do again. So that's why when you do a transport master plan, you plan it for 50 years. Singapore planned it also for 50 years. 1960 something they start planning all the MRT. Yeah, until today they are still using. Okay.
Again, just to interrupt, respond to Penang Forum query as to why some of these recommendations are not, some of the recommendations by HELCO are not implemented. I think in the very first instance when we announced the HELCO plan, besides giving out the recommendations of HELCO, the implementation aspect are also looked at. Implementation by whom? There are many parties that are responsible for implementation depending on the jurisdiction. HELCO also talk about a bypass along the North-South Highway. If it's not South Highway, jurisdiction-wise, definitely it comes under Lower Raya Utara Selatan Plus. A bypass from Juru to Sungai Dua or Kepala Patas. So that, although it is in the HELCO master plan, the state government is not doing it because it comes under the jurisdiction of Plus. As for federal road, the junction at Juru and Auto City and Pematang Pau, where you have serious congestion at the moment. Although it also comes under Plus, I think SRS has took this initiative to propose 2 or 3 tiers highway interchange. That should come under Plus, but SRS has also proposed to undertake the interchange, but that will come later. So we said that jurisdiction-wise, it is not the state government, it is the federal government, JKR plus local councils with regard to municipal roads, bicycle lane, of course, local councils. Developers will be imposed condition to build certain traffic elevation project in the vicinity of the project. For instance, in the Tanjung Tokong area, Ideal Property is proposing a flyover across the junction in front of Island Bazaar. So these are examples of various parties coming in to implement recommendation by HELCO. It's not necessary everything is captured by the SRS consortium. Depending on the jurisdiction, depending on the availability of fund. Okay, now you see after the second bridge, JKR Pusat is implementing 3 projects. One is completed. The dedicated highway along the Lower Raya Lim Chong Yip from Queens Bay to second bridge. Now from second bridge, Masing area, to the junction of Bayang Lepas is undertaken by JKL Pusat. And from the airport, Chongshan School, across to Telok Kumba, that is also a federal project. So while Calco proposed recommendation to address congestion issue in the state, it also said clearly, depending on the jurisdiction, availability of fund, these are the agency responsible. So if it is bicycle lane, MPPP is doing quite a lot at the moment. With regard to municipal road upgrading, like widening of green lane, underpass in Mount Eskin and Kotip Road is being planned. I think tender already called. There will be an underpass from Mount Eskin to go to Burma Road. All these are undertaken by the various agencies. It may not be addressed by SRS Consortium. SRS Consortium is basically dealing with the public transport system and one highway and the recognition as a funding model. Whereas others will come in on a smaller scale. We impose infrastructure contribution on developers, and these funds are used to carry smaller scale project, a few million project, 10, 20 million project from these contribution. Offhand, I think I can just think of this few. There is also a plan to do an underpass along Datuk Kramat into Patane Road. Things like that are being undertaken by the local councils. So the question that why SRS is not implementing the helpful recommendation, they can't. I mean, they are not entrusted to do everything, whereas other agencies responsible are doing respectively. The bypass, I don't know, they are working on it. Something like the Jelapang bypass, where the localized traffic don't have to mix with the highway traffic. So that would ease a lot of congestion along the Juru to Sungai Dua section. So that's why, in response to Penang Forum question, why not implementing, I think it's not true that it's not being implemented, but not by SRS, by other agencies. Thank you.
So that's why in the last sentence, you see, all the short-term, long-term, including cost-effective measures recommended by are carried by the state government in a holistic way. And for us, we are only part of it, part of all this master plan.
And the third part is the institutional framework. All this will relate to policies like traffic calming, higher parking charge, things like that, always highlighted by Dr. Limabui. Let's wait for the right time to, as Mr. Sito said, that once you get the LRT as a safety net available for people to use, we can look at other measures, increasing parking charges. DBKL already now implemented after 20 years of having LRT and monorail. Now they are looking at higher charge in the first hour of parking, 5 ringgit. A lot of public outcry, but I think it is necessary. Is Penang ready for that? Ready, but not maybe when the LRT are all ready, we have to look into all these aspects. Higher parking charges in at street or taking out street parking and all that. All these are recommended by HALCRO, but if you do it now without an alternative, I'm sure it is not easy to implement.
Okay. Here again, we would like to emphasize what is the role of a PDP, because every now and then we hear again that of why the construction costs go up will be better for us. You know, why are we involved in some of those structural plan meetings because we are developer? You know, so all this misunderstanding. SRS Consortium, PDP is project delivery partner. That means partner with the state government. Actually, we are not a contractor or developer. we are project delivery partner. And what does the role of a project delivery partner? We work as a state partner to develop, design, procure and manage the work package contractors. This is when the contractors come in to deliver the Ptmp components. Meaning that together with the state, we will have to engage consultants. Once our agreement is signed, we have to engage the consultants together with the state to come up with all the detailed design. And then we also will have to engage a professional QS to do the proper costing and then call for tender, all this. So we are actually a one-stop center, in liaising or getting all these professional consultants, professional QS, or sometimes even architects together, and to implement this project.
Don't forget the licensing authority.
Licensing authorities also.
SVAT.
So in our PTP agreement, actually it's not a construction contract. Because we are not carrying out any construction directly, but manages the construction works. And also, all the infrastructure type, the transit system selection will be decided by the asset owner, which is the state here. And the situation does not arise for PDP to inflate project costs for higher fee. Doesn't arise because we have to back up with this design by the professional consultants and all those professional engineers and all these things. So, and then we have to get better price, and we have to get the state to approve. So it's not that we are saying that we not like a turnkey contractor. We like to add this and that, Okay, the PDP has the ability to step in to rescue the project in the event that is non-performing work contractors due to its own skill and experience as a contractor. So this PDP must also have the experience as a contractor, because next time when the state has packaged tender out and what those work contractors for, let's say, for LRT, so we have to manage the construction work, and if they are slow, we have to step in and rescue. That's why only when you are an experienced contractor, construction, you have experience in construction works, then only you are able to step in to rescue. So the benefits of a PDP model. The PDP ensures successful delivery of all project components within time and budget. In accordance with the design and specification approved by the state government. This is a single point accountability. So in the normal projects, the state government will have to look for the contractor. Contractor say is a consultant. The consultant will say, oh, because the state authority give the instructions slow, so there are so many parties. Whereas in the PDP model, the state will just come after the PDP, because PDP is responsible to manage all the different components, of implementation of construction project. So PDP assumes all design, construction and integration risks of the project. The fees will be reduced if project outcomes is not met. We have a KPI, that is a pain gain system. And PDP is responsible in obtaining the necessary licenses and approvals. Okay? Now, some of those big projects that have been using PDP, overseas, these are the cross-rail project in London Olympics, New Doha International Airport, Korea High Speed. Even in Malaysia, actually, the PDP started off for the MRT1, and then they also use the PDP for the so-called beautification of the Klang River. Now even the LRT3 when they see the benefit of PDP in the MRT, LRT3 also they are using a PDP model. So in mega projects, usually you will have a PDP model now using. The next one, I would like to touch on is the Ptmp funding model. Now in our proposal, we include a funding model which is very important because the state will need to bear all these, most of the transport master plan packages now. And we find that this reclamation is the only way. It is better than what you call cutting down the hills and all these things. Now, this reclaimed land will belong solely to the state. Proceeds of the sale reclaimed land will be via public auction by the state government and used to fund the PDP components. So the question of us as a developer here doesn't arise because all this belongs to the state and it will be auctioned to all those public developers or whoever, you know, or those big MNCs that want to come in to build or extend their industrial areas or factories. Implementation of each Ptmp component, whether rail or road, depends on the economic viability and the fund availability. That's why the Ptmp will be developed in phases. And all these Ptmp component also will be tendered out via the open tender. So we are not a contractor here, okay? Now, the other question I always raise is the LRT sustainable model, whether we are able to sustain it. Now, for the LRT, the capex will be by reclamation. OPEX, which is the operation expenses, it will be partly fair revenue and partly non-fair revenue. Non-fair revenue, there are a lot of ways like advertising, transit-oriented development, you know, where all the commercials, if it is on state land, the state can own these commercial areas, and then they have a sustainable income to cater for this OPEX, you know. And then example of this public PPP is in Bangkok and in Singapore. Now, they always say that LRT and monorail in Penang, monorail in KL, they are not successful. Why? Because that model is a build, operate, transfer. That means the concessionaire will have to build, they have to use money to build, they operate, and then they transfer back to the government. This is not suitable. This has actually, this model nowadays no more use. Like in the latest LRT, usually they also no more. Because in this build, operate, transfer BOT model, the revenue here has to support the capex and the OPEX, and capex is always very high. Then, of course, if I'm a BOT contractor, I will try to project ridership revenue to be high so that it becomes bankable. You know, that's why they always say that those ridership in the BOT model in the initial are usually not a true picture. They have to put it up to make sure that they are bankable. Now, if the capex is undertaken by the asset holder, then you have to get a proper projection so that you will know which are the one that can be, the OPEX can be supported, how much can be supported by the fair revenue and non-fair revenue. And then we work on how to commercialize the LRT line. This is done in Hong Kong in a very successful way, where actually Hong Kong MRT, if you look at it, they are listed in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange as a property company, not an infra or a railway company. That's where they build all those underground stations, or they build the transit-oriented development, and they own the commercial, most of the commercial properties, collect rents, and then that's how they operate.
We are not using this model. We are using this model. In this model, the state, as the asset owner of the LRT, finance it through reclamation. We pay for the project, pay for the infrastructure, pay for the rail system. Then we appoint an operator to run the rail service. And we have to pay the operators a sum for them to operate. Some of it will have to come from the fare revenue. Some will be other mode of revenue, including advertising rights, commercial spaces in every station, and maybe around the station there may be land available for the operators to develop. So the operators do not have to worry about using all this to finance capex, because capex is already, the asset is owned by the government. They are just a contractor to run the service, so they are not required to earn or collect a lot of fair costs, develop what to pay for the 8 billion or 10 billion used to build the LRT. This money is already paid by the government through reclamation, and we own this system. We are appointing, let's say Pasarana, we are talking to Pasarana to come and operate our LRT system. An agreement will be signed. Of course, an open tender will be called to pick the operators. Let's say we pick Syarikat A, then there will be an agreement to look at how much fare revenue will be able to support OPEX, how much TOD development will be able to support OPEX. If you include CAPEX, I think it is an unviable system, because CAPEX runs into billion. In this case, how much? 8 to 10 billion, I don't know, or 6 billion. Whereas in the earlier days, it failed because the operators has to tanggung also the CAPEX cost, besides looking at operational costs. So now we are looking at two separate things. CAPEX already taken care by the government through the reclamation. We own the property, we own the asset, we appoint an operators to run the service, and we pay them. The fare can be given all to the government also can. I think the model, everything collected will go to the government, and the government will pay them the fees to run the service. That, depending on the model to be worked out in the tender stage. So why KL at that time was not viable? Because the operator has to also sell the ticket to pay for the construction cost, or pay the bank that loan them a huge amount of money to pay back the bank for the infrastructure cost. But today, the system does not pay because it achieves the ridership. It is catering to 70 to 100,000 people riding on the LRT, on the monorail. In terms of ridership, they have achieved after all these years. Maybe in the early days, connectivity was an issue. Two lines does not work in unison. If you drop from one station, you've got to walk 500, like in the case of Brickfield, 500 meters to the next LRT system. So the planning was wrong in the beginning. It's not that you cannot have more than one system. Just that if the issue of connectivity is seamless, it is connected, it is joined through the station, through the interchange, then issue of having more than one system does not arise. The Penang Forum, I thank you very much for them to be very concerned. How if one day the OPEX is not enough, it's not sustainable, it will bankrupt the state. Yes, that is a genuine concern. But we are looking at a different model here. CapEx already tanggung through reclamation. The operators does not have to worry to pay back because they did not come up with the money to build. The state came up with the money to build. So they are just responsible to ensure operation cost is covered to fair revenue to other non-fair revenue. And we are also looking at land to be developed in a land bank to subsidize any shortfall in operational costs. This is a huge difference now when you have to tanggung everything, CapEx and OPEX. It is killing, it's not feasible.
Next. Okay, now we will also talk on the Penang self-regulation. Besides using it as a funding model, we will act the reclamation of 4,500 acres. It will be a catalyst for economic transformation that is most crucial to take Penang to the next level. It will resolve land and transport issues in one move to further enhance Penang livability. It is the key to unlocking the future that will benefit Penang's future generations. And most important thing, this is the only key that is realistically available to the state. For economic transformation, you have to take place because at the moment, Penang Island is shortage of land. That's why you can see people are going up the hills. There are shortage of land, and there must be development for a state. If not, the new generation, they will all go. The talent will move out. Talent people will all move out. And this is the best opportunity available to the state. Besides funding the Ptmp, it will be also the economic transformation. That's why in this plan, there is also, we have a lot of meetings with the Jabatan JPPD, the planning department, the state planning department, to come up with a master plan, so that when these islands are all auctioned out, the developer will have to follow the guidelines of how to develop. You see, and this, because it is a new area, it will also help to put less pressure on the Penang heritage zone. Many cities where they have this heritage zone, they will try to create another city. And also so that in order to enable it to be connected, the old city, new city, that's where all the transport master plan will come in with the LRT, with the Penang Island Link Road. This will connect them. Example like in Beijing, you see you have the old Forbidden City, but then outside you can see all the new developments coming up. So this is a good plan so that there is an economic transformation taking place for the future generations. And with that planning, this transformative development, it will be a new chapter for Penang because it is a new island. We can plan it properly to have a greener environment, sustainable and competitive economy, they will help shortage of skilled labor, meaning that there is 1,000 acres allocated for high-end industrial zone. That means things like those Internet of Things, products and all these things. So they will retain talent people in Penang. Then we have this housing affordability, better quality of life. We have a very long continuous bicycle track planned for them and all the public beaches and public park. And there will be a future tram line like that, because we have allocated the corridor for this tram line to serve the 3 islands, so that next time people staying in the island, they can just depend on public transport. They don't have to own cars, you know. And if they want to go Georgetown, they can, from the tram, they jump onto LRT and it goes down to Ponta and all these things. So it will be a transformation, economic transformation for the Penang Island, using these three new reclaimed islands.
Okay, I think go back to the last slide. I think the state government is attracted by the proposal because it is a 2-in-1 proposal for the future of Penang. Through reclamation to fund the infrastructure project and the land made available for economic transformation of Penang for the next 50 years. Industrial and economic development. If solely transport package proposed without funding model, it cannot be done. But even with funding model through bank loans, of course you have to pay for it, but there will be no land opportunity like this to bring future development of Penang. That is why reclamation is so important, not only to fund the project, but also more importantly, to cater to the future economic transformation of the state, making available 4,500 acres to cater for all this future development. The Penang Forum proposed cheap, fast, and better, cheaper, and faster. Okay, we appreciate their concern, but they do not have a funding model. Or in the beginning of the slide, I think Mr. Sito has said that they are just throwing some ideas without doing feasibility study, funding model. Okay, can I ask Penang Forum if the so-called package that they propose to build tram along the 3 corridors identified, it may solve a little bit transport issues. Even then, it will probably cater to 40% of the mode share. The 60% will still be stuck on Penang Island. Everywhere you go, you still be stuck. In fact, the tram that they propose will contribute further to the congestion because it is not a dedicated corridor. It is to be shared by existing road users. So I think if we use that concept or idea proposed by Penang Forum, not only it will not decongest our road, probably it will add on to the congestion. And if you go up a train and you get stuck in traffic jam, will you travel by train, tram? It defeats the whole purpose, isn't it? A tram should be on a dedicated corridor, not to be mixed. If it is a tourist route, we can understand. You move slowly, tourists want to hop on and hop off wherever there is a stop. That we can recognize. But as a transit, is the proposal by Penang Forum feasible or not as a transport solution? Next, they don't talk about funding model. It's a state responsibility. We are NGO. We don't bother with this. This is our idea. But we have to cater to a funding model that look into the sustainability of the system. CapEx taken care of, yes, by the reclamation funding model, OPEX to be backed by the operators through fair revenue and unfair revenue. It is a very sustainable model, we believe. But most importantly, is land available for the economic transformation. If we follow Penang's forum idea, we lay 3 trend lines. Not only congestion issue will not be addressed, the Penang will be stuck as it is for the next perpetual. But with this, catering to a new transformation of the economy, new industrial expansion, we believe this is the proposal that we are very keen to see it happen. We hope that this explanation will address some of the concerns of Penang Forum. And this presentation will be uploaded on our website today. So media friends who want further detail can go into the website. Maybe we invite any question for this portion before we go to the next portion on the traditional Malay kampongs that may be affected by the alignment. Or we go straight into this second portion first?
For the second portion, I think my project manager, SRS project manager, Mr. Pojachin, will take us through.
Good morning, Wadicha, Mr. Tito, and friends for the media. Thank you very much to allow me a chance to explain on the kampung line issue. Okay, there is a concern that our LRT developments and our Pan Island development will take away will affect seriously the existing kampung houses and affect the traditional way of living. We would like to give some clarification on this point. First of all, we would like to explain that for the Bayang Lepas LRT, actually there are only 29 houses from 5 kampung are affected by the Bayang Lepas LRT. As we explained just now, the LRT will be on pier, so the land take will be quite minimum. So of course, the exact land take may be subject to the land office confirmation again. But 29 houses from 5 kampung is what we have now, based on our plan. So the original LRT alignment near the Penang airport will be changed to accommodate some space required for future airport extension. So that may add a little bit to the numbers, but shouldn't change that much from there. So we are currently having an engagement with the Malaysian airport, MHP, so of which the original LRT alignment along Bayang Lepas have to be shifted to. Okay, on the Pan Island link, from 1 kampung will be affected. Again, subject to the land office confirmation. So not that many of houses will be affected as a concern. So the amount of the land required by the LRT, we will try to further reduce it during the detailed design stage. And also we will implement mitigation measures to protect the assets with the potential heritage value as highlighted in the HIA reports. So for information, we have carried out a heritage impact assessment report to identify all the heritage important areas within our LRT alignments. So they have some recommendations which we will implement to preserve the heritage of the traditional Malay areas. So the state may also look into measures to protect the Malay kampungs in a holistic manner as per the state heritage enactment 2011. Okay, so this is the layout of the LRT. So you can see that most of the area, the kampung, there are only 5 kampung affected. The first will be the Kampung Selamat. okay, which is near the Sungai Nibong. Okay, whereas the rest 4 kampung is Kampung Baro, Kampung Padang, Kampung Seromong, and Kampung Brinjai, nearer to the southern side of the Penang.
The kampung affected is not the whole kampung because
Yeah.
the corridor is not very wide.
Yes.
So it's passing.
And then our alignment is an elevated alignment. We pier on the ground. We are not cutting through the kampung in the heart. Okay, this is the blow up of the area. You can see we are passing by, but not exactly taking a lot of land from the kampung.
The original line.
This is original line, so there may be some changes after we discuss with MAHB. This is the new line.
Because during the engagement with the airport authority proposing our original line, I think the airport has planned for future expansion. So they have requested SRS to shift the line out a little bit so that their future expansion, the line will not go through land that they have identified for their future expansion. This is the area that they propose to expand in future. Okay.
That's it. Thank you, Sidang.
The background is that a professor from USM has said last month that with the implementation of the Transport Master Plan, 20 over traditional kampung will vanish. But I think as we have shown, there are quite minimal impact on 29 houses along the corridor. Okay, kalau ada soalan, silakan. Kalau tak ada, selamat menyambut Hari Raya.
The 46 billion cost that was mentioned by the Penang Forum, so that's not accurate, is it?
What again?
46 billion that was mentioned by Penang Forum, is that accurate or not? Because they mentioned it was
The health
all
road,
phases.
Plan estimated also 27 billion. When better I think invite Sito to explain. When they submit the RFP, it is also that.
Yeah. HealthPro was 27 billion. When we submit the RFP, also was 27 billion. After we have been appointed as the project delivery partner, and through engagement with all the stakeholders, state agencies, so additional components were added, especially on the mainland, where there is also a monorail BRT on the mainland. That's why it goes up to 46 billion. And these are estimated amount from what you call cost comparison, benchmarking with other projects. The actual cost will only be known when the state implement the project and call for tender. Then only you will know what is the real actual cost. When you tender, open for tender to the public. And this implementation is also not within the first 5 years of phase 1, it can be phase 2, phase 3 later part, because those are basically, most of it is on the mainland. That's why we have to explain that there is a difference between the RFP which we have submitted. The RFP actually is not a so-called master plan that is approved by the state. That is our proposal, and proposal to be a PDP. This is what we can do. We want to tell the state government this is what we can do as a project delivery partner, and also propose a funding model. So after we have been appointed as a project delivery partner, additional components are requested by the various state agencies, mainly at the mainland side.
My MPSP on the mainland.
On the mainland side. And then some of the missing roads that have been need to be linked up. So these are all given by that. So that's why there is a cost difference.
Okay.
So the proposal was by SRS was just the PIF and the LRT. That's it. So the additional components were the ones that were added
Yeah,
on
is
for
in
the
our
mainland.
in our RFP lah. We have some also for the mainland in the RFP. That is the Julai interchange upgrading and PKE interchange upgrading. So additional components were requested. And also in the end, also the MPSP has approved it. That's why it's incorporated into the master plan. Not necessary that it's implemented now. You see, all this planning is best. They identify, the local council identify, and incorporate it into the plan first. You know, not necessary that SRS will do that part of the, will be the PTP for that part of the job, because that is in the future. Maybe the MPSP, when they have funds, they want to build, then they can build. But important thing is the corridor we have identified, put into the plan, so that they also easier for them next time in any future development. They look at the development plan, they tell the developer you have to avoid this area.
You have to provide the corridor.
Provide the corridor lah, you know.
Provide land for the corridor.
Yeah.
The state can save one.
So you're saying that SRS is only responsible for phase 1 of this master
We still don't know yet. It's up to the state.
As we have said many times, the priority project, the reclamation, the highway and the LRT, is the 3 priority.
So these additional components is still called the Penang Transport Master Plan, is it?
Yes, it's in the plan. That's implemented and put into the plan. Whether it's going to be implemented by us as PDP or not, we don't know. You see, it can be by because when it is designated in the master plan, any developer that want to do development, they have to surrender the corridor, you know, and then this will save the state also in future. And maybe MPSP will call their own tender, you know, we don't know.
And the priority project is 27 billion. Is it?
Not necessary, not necessary,
Not necessary.
not necessary. It depends on the funding. If the fund comes 15 million, then we have to look at how to juggle again.
Okay, under the solar line.
How does the reclamation work? Because if that's going to fund the construction, right, of the capex itself, how does the reclamation work? Do you reclaim first, then you start? How does this work?
Of course, you need to reclaim to have the land.
Yeah.
So after, you see in the planning also, we have parcel out the land to be reclaimed. So basically, it will be in parcels. Let's say if you have reclaimed about 500 acres, then we will tell the state is ready to be tendered out. So then the state will prepare the necessary documents. The state approve, call the tender, and see who is the highest bidder, you will get it. So it will be in stages. Like in our planning stage, it will be in the 2nd year or 3rd year, starting of reclamation, we are able to tender the first package. So as the fund come in, yes.
I think many times this question has been posed. Is reclamation will take a few years to materialize while your project is running. Who will finance it? So SRS is responsible for the bridging finance. It could run into a billion or 2. We don't know yet. So the timing, phasing will be looked into when the approvals is granted. So, in essence, the reclamation must generate enough revenue for the reclamation cost itself and the infrastructure on the 3 islands, and sufficient to pay for the rest of the project. I think at one time I was saying, okay, assuming the project we are implementing is 27, the island reclamation plus the infrastructure, you lay fiber optics, you build the sewerage line, let's say 16 billion. 16 plus 27 is 43B. So the land from the island must be able to generate 43B. 43B minus reclamation cost and infrastructure cost on the island, 16, it becomes 27. Work backward lah, no? But this 27, how many projects will be sufficient to carry out? How many projects will depends on the contract sum. So maybe we can implement 3 or 5 projects, you know. So with the 27B, it can implement maybe 4 or 5 projects. Other than including of course the PIL and the LRT, and then second phase could be the Konta and Biotropong Konta to Tanjung. So if the revenue from the land sales is higher, if it hits 50B, then of course you have another 4B additional to carry out more projects.
Maybe can you address again of the issue of the projections of ridership that
projection of ridership, yeah.
Because even though the capex is going to bear by the states, the OPEX thing, I think a lot of concern raised by the forum regarding this overestimate. So in long term, there's still a burden for the state financial.
Of course, with the capex being catered for, as you highlighted also, it is a less burden on the operators and the state in future. OPEX can also be phased out. If initial phase, if you don't need 4 trains running at one time, you run 2 trains. So to reduce the operation cost, depending on the ridership. Adding on the train is it can be easily done. No? You don't have to have a full capacity running on day one. But depending on the ridership, as confidence build up, you add more coaches into the system.
Basically, for this, that's why this LRT is planned for 50 years. You know, you don't expect it full ridership immediately year 1. So we also don't expect it to be full capacity actually year 1 to year 7 or 8 like that. You see, and important thing is, let's say first few years, instead of a 4 car, we have 2 cars set. So these are the flexibility that is available. But we have to plan for expensive projects like that. We have to plan longer term, so that you can add on in later when the projection. Now, like the projection from the for us, we have projected even from the the PSR island. We are expecting easily when it is another 300,000 population there, or 340 or whatever, 380 population. You know, when we work together with JPPD to come up with a structure plan, you know, it will be another 380,000 population there. These are all also catered for in the planning. As I said, it's long term. You know, you don't build something that is for short term and then come to 2030, you think that it's not sufficient, then you have to redo the whole thing. It will be more expensive.
Okay, soalan lain, pandangan?
At what stage of the feasibility studies are you at right now? 100% completed?
Feasibility study is completed. So now we are actually in preliminary design. Because your feasibility study have to be completed to be able to submit to the railway scheme to SPAD, and also you submit the reclamation plan for DOE to approve.
Basically, I think we are waiting for SPAD to give a conditional approval to our railway scheme, waiting for DOE to give approval for the DIA for the island,
DEIA.
and the EIA for the PIL. So all these three approvals are necessary for us to move ahead. Hopefully in very few months from now, very few months, single digit months from now, we can get the approval for us to move to the next stage. If not, then there's still a lot of talking. SRS cannot be made to commit even further to final design, incurring more costs if the approval is not granted. Then the Sesi have to phase out. Their work has to phase out also.
Why is the DIA and EIA is still working on it, or already submitted to
We already got the
TOR.
terms of reference approved by DOE. So now, when the term of reference approved by DOE, now we are working to comply to these terms of reference, which we are doing it now, and expected to submit in late July or August.
DIA application is also a process. You have to go stage PAT first, TOR, then come with the detail. So we have crossed the TOR stage, which is very good. We can go into the detail, and then public exhibition and public display. Very soon the SRS will present to the state the findings on the EIA, what are they doing up to now, the fishery impact assessment, all that will be tabled to the state for updates. So at this juncture is all these studies to be approved by the authorities. This will take another few months hopefully. Okay, kalau tak ada, saya ucapkan terima kasih kepada rakan-rakan media yang sabar memahami isu yang diberikan Pak Pelan. 今天我们很高兴可以针对槟城论坛主持，针对滨州交通大蓝图所做出的询问一一的做出我们的这个解答。那我们认为槟城论坛所提到的课题纯粹是构想，他们希望看到最好的，我们非常了解和接受这些看法，但是从我们的这个 SRS Consortium 的回应，我们了解槟城论坛的建议只是属于概念式的，而并非进行过深入的研究，甚至没有这个融资的方案来落实我们交通大蓝图的这个计划。今天的解说让我们了解，要进行这样庞大的这个交通计划，是需要到多层面、多方面的这个努力，而并非是处于一种看法或一种概念而已。实际的课题，比如我们的槟城论坛所建议的 Ptmp 是否 可以解决我们交通问题吗？是一个很大的疑问。而且，如果依照槟城论坛只建这三条 LRV 的系统，就可以克服滨州的交通问题吗？也是一个大的疑问。所以我们欢迎槟城论坛或者任何非政府组织团体居民对于我们落实滨州大蓝图的关心。如果这些建议是可以作为参考，而且可以实行的话，州政府没有理由不去参考和实行。但是现大疑问，因为我们整个计划的融资方法是通过填海，不只是可以资助我们这个270亿的交通计划，而且这4500个的土地会作为滨州未来50年经济转型的用途，所以这个是一个非常好的这个方案。而槟城论坛却没有针对这个融资的方法做出他们的意见。谢谢。OK， terima kasih. Moving road space for train and PRT is practical and realistic. I think today's presentation by SRS and the state government I believe has been able to address all the concerns raised by Penang Forum. Pagi ini pembentangan oleh SRS Consortium dan Kerajaan Negeri, saya percaya telah dapatlah memberi input kepada isu-isu yang dibangkitkan oleh Penang Forum. Dan kita akan berusaha untuk memastikan kerajaan pusat dapat memberi kelulusan kepada permohonan kita dalam tempoh yang terdekatlah, supaya kita dapat melaksanakan kerja-kerja yang menyusul seperti mereka bentuk yang detail, mengadakan public display supaya rakyat jelata dapat memberi input kepada cadangan kita. Itulah harapan kita dan kita harap dapat kelulusan dalam tempoh yang terdekat.